Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with a retired commander of the US Navy. She's also a Ph.D., CSP, CPAE, Mary Kelly, one of the most sought after speaker on leadership. She's absolutely phenomenal, fascinating story, and great insights for all of us. Enjoy my conversation with Mary. Thank you. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today I have the immense honor to speak with a commander of the US Navy, retired. She is a PhD, CSP, CPAE, and she is probably one of the most sought after leadership, speaker on leadership that I know of, an amazing individual, Mary Kelly. Mary, thank you so much for taking the time.
Eric, I am so excited to be with you and your audience as we are getting ready for all kinds of changes in all kinds of businesses, all kinds of organizations.
Absolutely. But before we get into that, because I know you have a lot to share, what is your story? And I know a little bit of it, and I think it's absolutely fascinating. What is the story of Mary Kelly?
Well, you're so kind to ask. I grew up basically in Dallas, Texas. I was trying to figure out a way to figure out my life. And I somehow was accepted to the Naval Academy. We did not have any political connections. You actually don't need that. A lot of people think you do. But I got to go to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. And that did three things. First, it gave me a world class organizational experience in the educational world, number one. Number two, I got to learn engineering, but also leadership from the best people, I think, on the planet. And number three, I had the opportunity, and most importantly, to serve my country. And I wasn't sure what that meant growing up. I never knew anybody in the military. I never knew anybody who'd been in the military. I had no idea. So it was kind of something that I believed all the commercials, join the Navy, see the world. Well, it turns out that's still true. You can actually do that. So I thought, well, maybe I'll do my 5 years commitment and then get out and go do something else. But I have to tell you that the purpose of what I was doing at the time was so important to me. And I thought the work we were doing was so important that I just kept staying. I just kept staying. I just kept staying. So I wound up doing about 25 years on active duty, mostly in
Wow.
Asia. And then when I retired out of the Navy, I'd been a teacher at the Naval Academy. I'd been a professor, and I thought I was going to continue that until one of our colleagues in the National Speakers Association saw me speak at a conference and said, "You might want to be taking this leadership thing on the road." And that's kind of how it started. And I thought, okay, I can give it 3 to 5 years and we'll see what happens. And if I'm a dismal failure, that's okay. And if not, then we'll see what happens. And that's kind of how it started.
That's awesome. So 25 years in the Navy. I suppose at that moment there were much less women in the Navy. How was it to be a woman in the Navy at that time? And what have you seen that the change that you've seen now for those who are listening?
That's an interesting question. When I joined the Navy, women were less than 3%, and now I think we're about 14%. And for me, I didn't think there were a lot of people when I went to the Naval Academy who still didn't think women should be there. And I respect where they came from. It's tradition, it's how they were raised, it's what they believed in. And that's one of the things we have to respect is how people believe and what it is they think about. And so you have to kind of prove that you have the right to be there. And then you have to be better than you might otherwise. So I think that actually just pushed me a little bit harder, and because you're trying to prove yourself, and I think it made me work harder.
That's awesome. And now, when you said you were a lot in Asia, you obviously learned a lot about leadership. Is there any story you can share without having to kill me afterwards? But about example of what you've been doing and what you learn, or something memorable. And I'm sure there's a lot of stories.
Well, I'll tell you one. When I became the chief of police at Barbers Point Naval Air Station, my boss at the time calls me in his office and said, "We take care of our people." I'm like, "Well, yes, sir." Like, "Yeah, I know that." And he said, "So if any of your people ever go to the hospital, you need to tell me and I'm going to show up." And I'm like, "Huh?" What if they like, got a hangnail? Like what, wait, is it a hospital visit? I mean, I wanted some clarification, but I was also like, I kind of got this. Like, I don't need your help. And thanks, boss, but no, okay. And he looks at me and goes, if they're admitted to a hospital, you let me know because I show up. That's what we do. And I was like, yes, sir. Okay. Didn't think too much about it. Sure enough, about 2 weeks later, one of my guys goes into the hospital, appendicitis. He gets admitted. I show up. Nobody gives me the time of day. Well, of course, I called my boss. My boss drove to the hospital, shows up. So he's an '06, which is pretty senior. So he's a full bird captain in the Navy walking through the halls. And all of a sudden, my petty officer gets a lot of attention because the boss showed up. And there was that moment where I thought, okay, we shouldn't need the boss to show up to get good care. But at the same time, that's kind of falling into the category of using your powers for good. He didn't have to do anything, he didn't have to say anything, he just had to show up. And I think, Eric, a lot of people underestimate the power of just showing up. A lot of what we do is made because we show up. You show up to groups of people, you have an influence. You show up for your people, it makes a difference. You show up every single day prepared to inspire and influence other people in the best possible way.
Absolutely. I love that. And the fact that you take care of our people remind me of a marketing teacher I had in Belgium who was saying that in the best army of the world, the general don't say, let's go. They say, follow me.
Well, and there's a lot to that. Sometimes, as a leader, you got to look behind you and make sure people are there. Because if you're not a good enough leader, your people are going to watch you and go, wonder where they're going. And this, I think, we as leaders have to be mindful of. We have to lead so that people want to follow us. And our direction has to be so good that people are excited about where we're going, even if it's going to be hard,
Mhm.
especially if it's going to be hard.
Yeah. Now you're talking about leadership, talking about productive leaders, and I know there's so many things we can talk about today, especially in this world where it's very difficult to plan, to know what's going to happen in advance. And obviously, if you don't have any planning, how can you lead people? Where are you going? But what is it about flexible planning today, and how do you do that with the world changing almost every day?
And that's exactly the problem is that many people just kind of threw up their hands and they're like, well, why bother to plan when everything is changing anyway? There was an article this morning in the paper that said, COVID rules could change by the time you get on the plane till the time you get off the plane. And people are freaking out about this. Many people have just stopped, like deer in the headlights. They're frozen. They're paralyzed by inactivity and fear and frustration, and they're letting the stress and the overwhelm get to them. And this is where you and I both know leadership needs to kick in. Leadership needs to be the default. And we as leaders have to say, okay, we're the plans might change along the way, but we know where we're going. We still have a vision of where we need to go. We are the premier radiological practice in all of Texas. We are the country's best known plumber repair people. Whatever that is, this is where we're going. You have to show up every single day and give people that vision of where we're going. In the Navy, we used to say, it's not just a job, it's an adventure. Not just so when things get hard, we're like, well, it's not just a job, it's an adventure. Like what did you expect? But kind of reminding people this is the adventure and it's a privilege and honor every single day to do what we get to do. You got to keep that in your head. That needs to be the default. And so many people stopped planning because they were afraid to be wrong, and that's wrong, or they were afraid that their plans were going to have to change. Plans are always going to have to change.
Right.
So this is where we as leaders have to plan and have contingencies, but we also have to be flexible so that as different situations, different information shows up, we adjust. I asked one of my 3-star generals one day, he said, look, you are never going to have perfect information. You're never going to have perfect information. You have to make the best decision every single day based on what you have. Now, it doesn't mean you get careless, but you got to make the best decision. And I said, well, what if you're wrong? He goes, then we change the decision. And I'm like, that's a good point. And many people are so afraid of looking as though they're wrong that they say, well, I've made up my mind and I can't change it. Well, that's patently stupid. If you get new information and the situation changes, of course, you have to make course corrections along the way.
And communicate again.
And you have to communicate it. If your people don't know, you can't expect them to read your mind. And this is where I tell my leaders all the time, look, you can be terrible at a lot of aspects of leadership. But if you are good at communication and good at communicating where people are going, that will take care of a lot of your problems.
Mhm. And I spent over 20 years in my life planning meetings in over 50 countries. And I must say, not once did everything went exactly according to plan. It was always changing. Now I feel more and more in the last years that people are more concerned about, am I going to get fired? Or if I do this, or if I say that, instead of what is best for the organization. So to your point of making or changing the decision because the facts have changed or the information that we have now has changed, how do you go about that? And how do you build a culture that allows the leaders and the people that are not necessarily at the executive level to make the right decisions?
This is where trust comes into play. And what you want to do is make sure that your people trust you so that they know you've got their back when they make a bad decision, especially when they make a bad decision. And I've had that happen in my civilian career where I had somebody make a decision that was wildly costly, very expensive. And she said, I guess you're going to fire me. And, I pulled that from somebody else's playbook. I said, are you kidding? You just got a $10,000 education. I said, why would I fire you now that you know that? And this is where we've got to be supporting our people. And you got to let people try and fail. And I got to tell you, my parents used to say, look, go do something. Even if it's wrong, go do something because you'll learn something. But try. And if you fail, that's okay. But at least try. And trying is really important for innovation, for advancement, for figuring out technology, all of that. You have to give people a long enough you know, grace to be able to try things and fail. Now, if it's catastrophic, well, you rein them in a little bit, but your people need to know that you've got their back, that they need to be innovating and they need to be kind of pushing the envelope. I want my folks to be trying things right up to that envelope. And if they cross over the line, that's okay. At least they're doing something. And right now, we've got to, I think, embrace the people who are on the edge because
Mhm.
that edge is going to make the difference with us being ahead of things or lagging behind. We're fond of saying you can swim with the tide, you can float with the tide, or you can swim against the tide. And I tell my leaders, you've got to get ahead of the tide. You've got to be surfing the wave. And then once you get ahead of it, the momentum will carry you, but you got to get ahead of it. And that means paddling like crazy.
I heard you say once that planning for the future, strategic planning for the future, means making tough decisions. What do you mean by that?
Many times as leaders, we want to be liked. We want to show up to work every single day and we want people to like us. And we think that if they like us, they're going to follow us and respect us. But that's not true. They can like us and not respect us. And as leaders, we've got to make tough decisions. And this is especially true with regards to your top talent. If you're treating your top talent the same way that you're treating your top talent may like you, but they're going to leave you, and they should because you're not treating them the way they deserve to be treated. Maybe they're bringing in 80% of the business and your bottom half is bringing in 20% of the business and you treat everybody the same. You give everybody the same bonuses, you give everybody the same rewards. That's crazy. You shouldn't do that. You've got to make tough decisions. And sometimes that means letting some people go. One of my executives very recently said, I finally took your advice and fired this person, even though I didn't want to do it because it was part of that. We've been working on the fix it or fire it for 6 months and he couldn't fix it. So he had to fire this person and he felt really terrible about it. But he said the next day, several of his top talented people came in and said, good job on firing that person. We were just waiting for you to do it. Like they were watching their leader. They knew this person was dragging down the rest of the team. And frankly, they perceived their leader as being weak and ineffective by not taking action sooner. So sometimes the team members are waiting for us to be decisive, even when it's uncomfortable for us. And it is difficult. I'm the first one to say we want to be liked. We want to show up and have everybody think we're great and wonderful and all of that. But the reality is, when you're leading an organization, sometimes you have to make tough decisions.
Got it. And to your point, I was listening to what you said that they were waiting for that person to make the decision. Uh, that leader is lucky because in a lot of cases, people don't wait anymore and they leave and
It's
go
true.
somewhere else.
That is true. And right now, as you know, and when you air this, it'll probably be even more, but about 20 million people in America have voluntarily left their jobs in the last 9 months. And the reason for this is a few. First, they think the grass is greener somewhere else. Now, right now, as we're doing this, I'm in Colorado where grass has a totally different meaning, where they think the grass is better somewhere else. So you got to make sure you give them good grass. Wait, that sounds bad coming from Colorado. But the issue is some people don't understand what their full compensation package is. And some people are hearing from their friends. They see on social media that their friends have better lives and better vacations and better work environments. And the reality is that's not really true in most cases. But if it is, how do you up your game so that you are that place where people want to come to work? The second part of it is making sure your people know what their compensation package is. Hey, just because you're getting this as your paycheck, this is your medical package and here's your 401k package and here's your flexible spending plans. A lot of people don't know that, and I always encourage my leaders to take time before the end of the year to let people know when you give them that bonus, hey, thanks so much, and by the way, I just want to let you know what our whole compensation package is. And you can be honest. You can say, look, I want to make sure you don't go anywhere. We love having you here, we want to keep you, and I want to make sure that you know that if some of your friends are talking and they're in a similar field, that their medical package may not be as good as ours, that their vacation package may not be as good as ours, that their working hours may not be as good as ours. So I want you to know. And that kind of transparency goes a long way because people recognize I am a talent and I can go other places, but I
Yeah.
don't want to. I am
Mhm.
staying because this is the right place for me to make an impact.
And also sharing the purpose, making them understand the purpose. What are they contributing to? It's not only a job, it is what you're doing and the impact you're having, right?
Yes, you know that so many people they go to a job and they think it's a job and they think it doesn't matter and they think they're interchangeable. Well, that's a leader's job. That's a leader's job to make people feel and believe and understand that what they're doing is part of something much bigger than themselves. I have an acronym for this that you've heard me use, and I use pivot. I know we're so sick to death of the word, but it works. And now I've got a book on it, so now I'm stuck with it forever. So it's pivot. It's make sure that you show up every single day with the P, with instilling that sense of purpose with every single person who's there. The mission is what we do. The vision is where we're going. And you've got to help people get that. The I is making sure that people understand the influence they have. And your job is to inspire people every day to be great at what it is they do. And then that V is the volatility. You and I have seen it. Managers walk around and they're like, "Hey, Eric, how you doing?" And you go, "Good, great, fine." Happens all the time. Doesn't give you any idea about what's really happening with those people. So I say, give them a metric. On a scale of 1 to 10, assess the volatility. Hey, Eric, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being absolutely fantastic and one being pretty darn bad, where are you today with everything going on? Easy question. And if somebody says, I'm a 7 or an 8, great. What would it take to get you to a 9? And then listen for the answer. And in most cases, it's going to be something easy. If somebody says, I'm a 2, you need to ask some questions. Is there something you want to talk through? Is there something we can do to help you? Is there something I should know about? Nothing too probing, nothing that violates any kind of HR issues, but letting people know that you're there instead of just good, great, fine, and you keep walking. You got to listen for the answers and then figure out if there's a way you can help them solve their problem. Now, maybe they hate their boss. You should know about that. But maybe their in laws moved in with them when COVID started and they haven't moved out. And this is terrible because they moved into a tiny house at the same time and things are a little bit cramped. Well, that's not something you can necessarily help. But you might be able to say, we've got some extra space in a storeroom. Would it help to store some stuff here while things get worked out? Look for solutions and assess the volatility and then lead for the individual. Many people say, well, I don't know how to lead baby boomers, or I don't know how to lead millennials, or I don't know how to lead women, or whatever the category is. Good leadership is good leadership. People want leaders who understand them and their motivation and can communicate with them in a way that they best understand. And then back to that pivot, just to round it out, the O is finding the opportunities for your organization as well as your people while not being opportunistic. You're not taking advantage of other people's misfortune. What you're doing is finding areas where you can best help other people, and then you step in to help. And then that T is making sure you've got the technology, training, and tactics in place for your people so they can be successful.
So P is for purpose, I is for
Influence,
influence, V is for vision,
volatility, assess the
oh yeah,
volatility. Mhm.
O is opportunity.
And T is training, technology, and tactics, basically making sure people have the gear they need to do the job.
That's awesome. When I see around me the people I respect the most and the leaders I respect the most, they also have this wheel of genuinely caring for others,
Mhm.
not at any cost, but really making sure that, to your point, that they understand where their team is, what is going on. And we have so many things that we can be influenced by. And today, with this working from home that we've had the last 2 years, to your point, there's so many private element that can influence and impact your business. How do you manage to balance that, respecting all the HR laws and everything, but in the meantime, showing people that you care for them, that without being intrusive?
Right. So most people don't feel as though they are cared for or cared about. And this is a delicate balance because it's slightly different from appreciation. What people want from their leaders, especially their first line supervisors, your first line supervisors are your number one area, which is generally a problem. That they want to make sure that they feel appreciated, valued, respected, and needed in the workplace. So you do that by showing people you trust them. You make sure that you sit down with them, not just at the yearly performance evaluations, but throughout the month. When somebody says, "Hey, I want to talk to you on Tuesday at 2 o'clock," and that's your boss, for a lot of people, it's, "Uh oh, what have I done wrong?" If that's their default, when they feel like they're getting sent to the principal's office because you want to talk to them, that's the wrong default. So, two things. First off, say, "Hey, I'm very excited about the work you're doing, and I would like to talk to you about, some opportunities around here that I think you might be excited about too." Now they're like, "Wow, my boss cares about me and they're taking an interest in my career," instead of "See me in my office at 2 o'clock."
Mm.
No, that's terrible because now they're going to go back to their office and start putting their resume together. That's not what you want. It defeats the purpose. So help your people see the future with you. Take an interest in their career. Take an interest in their personal as well as professional development. Hey, and I've got forms for this. As you know, Eric, I've got about 85-minute business solutions. And it's everything from focus and productivity to employee engagement and teamwork and career planning. And it's just supposed to be a conversation starter so that when you bring someone into your office or you're the employee and you want to talk to your boss, you say, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about my future opportunities here. And here's a career plan, and I'd like us to discuss it." Because Forbes says 58% of our managers uh, have zero managerial training, zero. And then we throw them into this and we
Yeah.
expect them to be successful based on what they had before. Well, wait a
Mhm.
second. What if they've only been working for bad leaders this whole time? Then they're going to be a bad leader too. So
Absolutely.
part of the solution there is making sure our first line supervisors are having conversations with people when there's not a problem. This is what a lot of times we do. We only talk to our people when there's a problem. "Hey, I need you to fix this. Hey, you've been doing this wrong. Hey, and they're kind of like a dog. When the only time you see your dog is when you yell at the dog. That's not fair for the dog. And the dog doesn't get excited about seeing you when all you do is yell
Nope.
at it. I say that because I've got two canine office managers with me right now, and they're both wildly nonplussed about my conversation. They are both asleep.
Ah, nice. I haven't heard them yet.
Oh no, they're sleeping. They know that when mommy's on a podcast, it's time to go to bed, take a nap.
Well, I wish I could train mine to do that, but it's good. Mary, I've heard Warren Buffett one day said that one of the threat of successful leaders is people that can say no. And And if you work in the meetings and event industry, with all the change, of course, but if you are a business owner, whether you're alone in your company or you have a team, 20, 30 people, there's a question of being able to allocate time, resources. You have all the project you have to manage, the trade show you have to attend, the familiarization trip that you invited to. What are your advice for leaders in terms of allocating their time and resource, first of all, for them, but also for their company?
So I have a 5-minute plan, Eric, called the Year in Review Plan. And it asks those questions. What do you absolutely need to do that nobody else can do? And that's really where you need to spend your time. I know that when I create master classes or I'm doing my executive training programs or I'm writing my keynotes, it's only me. I'm the only one who can do that. But I don't have to make address labels. I don't have to do data entry. I don't have to make the flyers. I can design them. I can give somebody a vision, but for me to sit there in InDesign or whatever, or Adobe, and actually make the flyer, that's a pretty bad use of my time.
Mm.
So I think about all the things I do every single day, and then I reflect on that at the end of the day. And I say, well, what did I need to do? What really needs to get done? And who else can I get to do it? Now, a lot of my solopreneurs say, Mary, you don't understand. I can't afford an assistant. And I say, you can't afford to not have an assistant. And I've had my virtual assistant since before they were virtual assistants. But there's services out there that allow you to take advantage of other people's time and talent. And the surprise is most of the time they turn out a better product than what you would do if you did it. I
Yep.
know for my flyers, the only reason my flyers look good is because I didn't do them. Mine would look like a third grade class project. And so I'm not an affiliate for these people, but I use a service called fancyhands.com. It's 29 bucks a month. You get 5 jobs. And it's just a quick and easy way to dip your toe into the virtual assistant world because they make it very easy. You set up an account, it takes 2 minutes. If you send them a job from your email address, and you can use multiple emails, to request at fancyhands.com, it recognizes your email and then it farms out that job and then you get it back. And here's what I talk to my solopreneurs about: get things off your plate. Whatever you got going on today, get them off your plate. If you've got to follow up with a client, you know it's going to be a 20-minute client call, get somebody else to do it. Send it to Fancy Hands. Get them to do the phone call. Get them to make your address labels. Get them to do the flyer. Get them to do some corporate research. Whatever that is, get in the habit of getting things off your plate. It does 2 things. First, the things actually get done that way. If you pay somebody else to do it, it gets done. The
Yep.
second thing is it bops back to you, oftentimes with a fresh approach that, frankly, especially if you're a solopreneur, you need that fresh approach. So it's just an easy way to do that. As you know, I've got a team of people and they're terrific. And I use talent from all over the planet because I like the fresh approach that different things give me. But saying no is important. It's not that you don't need to do it. It's not that it's not going to get done. You just don't need to do it. And there's certain things that you thought you were going to do in 2020 and 2021. And guess what? You probably don't need to be doing those things in 2022. And it's very hard. It's very hard to look at your baby and go, that was an ugly baby. I really don't need to be doing that project. And I mean, I've done this on books where you put your heart and soul into a book and you work on it for a year and a half. And then you get there and you go, this still needs revisions. Am I going to do those revisions or am I just going to go on to the next project? And it's really hard to let some of those projects go. And sometimes that's the right thing.
I can't help it. You know me. I have ADD, so every time you have like triggers when you say that's an ugly baby, I can't help but think about the meme where you see the stable where Jesus is just born, and then there's a turkey looking at it and say, "Oh, that's an ugly baby," and that's where the tradition of eating a turkey is.
A friend of mine sent me a meme, and there's a picture of a golden retriever, and it's licking a baby, brand new baby, and it says, there, you ugly bald puppy." It's just funny because sometimes we fall in love with our own stuff, and sometimes it's the wrong thing. I have a business coach, you have a business coach. I coach other people because I can see their stuff more clearly than they can.
Yep.
But that's why I have a business coach too, because he can see my stuff more clearly than I can. And I
Absolutely.
like people with a different perspective. So, because I'm a girl, I want a guy as one of my business coaches to give me just a man's perspective. And some of my male executives want the same thing for me. They're like, I kind of like your perspective because it's different from how my brain operates. Um, I I call
Absolutely.
people in different countries and I say, what does this look like to you? Because I want their perspective. I hire people who are different from me because I want that different perspective.
Absolutely. And coming back to your point of delegating or having other people doing it for you, I think the third advantage is that it free time for you to focus on the things that are important and where you should be focusing your time, because that's where you're best in doing what you do.
I can when I am best when I am really well prepared for a speech for sure. And when I do that research, that's great. But I can have other people feed me the research and I can explore that research. Um, I I tell my audiences, if you ever see a mistake in my PowerPoint, it is because I did that, not my people. Or I had a good idea, or I thought was a good idea, and I probably was wrong. Um, so I trust my people to do their best job. There's this economic theory called the theory of efficiency wages, and for my virtual assistants and my designers and all of that, we pay our people as well as we possibly can, and they give us a great product in return, and it works out really well. We've got to do the things where we have a competitive and a comparative advantage, that we've got to be giving it to other people to do the things that we don't have to do. um, I remember when I first hired my very first virtual assistant, and I'm talking, I hired her my first day in this business, so she's been with me for 15 years. It was a Saturday, and at the time I was still building my own websites back in the day, so that tells you how bad this was. I could not get something to work. And I'm sitting there watching football. It's Saturday. I probably had a beer in front of me. And I'm working on this website. I could not get this to work. I'm pretty sure the beer had no factor, but I'm not going to rule it out. And so I sent it to her on a Friday at like 4 o'clock. I was like, hey, this is not anything urgent. Please don't work on it today. But can you tell me what I'm doing wrong for this? Now, I've been working on it for 3 hours. Not 90 seconds later, after I hit send, she sends it back and goes, oh, do you mean like this, Mary? It was perfect.
Oh, wow.
3 hours I spent on that. So I gave her a raise that day, and she came from the tech world, which was awesome. And sometimes we just can't see it, and we can't see what we're not good at. And that's why we need other people.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you. And the other thing is that, we're recording this end of 21, so probably going to be published in beginning of 22, but very soon. But the point is, as we're planning for the coming year, a lot of people, and I'm guilty of that as well, are doing to-do list.
Yes.
And you have a certain twist on the to-do list, which is the stop doing list.
Yes.
Yes. Can you
So
tell us a little bit more about that?
as you know, I have one of my templates because I was all in love with day timers and day runners and all those planning things. But I needed a bunch of those sheets. I needed lots of them. So I created my own, and this is a free download at productiveleaders.com/free. Anybody can use it, download them, use them all the time. And what I do is I say, what do I need to not do anymore? I look at my year in review, also the plan that's at the same site, and I look at that and say, okay, I spent a lot of effort marketing in that direction. And guess what? It didn't work. So I need to stop doing that. I need to go in a different direction.
Mhm.
That's where I need to go. I need to take the resources away from this area and put them in a different area. Got it. So I make that plan, and I do have to do lists. And as you know, one of my other things is the 12-month business accountability planner. And I drink my own Kool-Aid. I use my own planners, and for each one of my clients, I have, like, this one's Mary, so it says Mary on it in crayon or whatever. Each of my clients get their own, so that's how I hold them accountable. So I've got this stack of these books on my desk because that's how my brain has been trained to think,
Mhm.
is this is what has to be get, and that's how I keep them on track. That's my secret weapon for coaching, are my own productivity planners. And you can use anything you want, just it's all about accountability. It's all about making
Yep,
sure that you
absolutely.
show up and you get the things done that you're supposed to get done. It's all about making sure that you are that reliable person, so that when somebody says, hey, I need this one sheet from you, or I need this thing from you, or I need this proposal, you get it done. that you're responsive, whatever that looks like. And you have to be dedicated to your own success. And this is where I think a lot of people think that in this great resignation turned attrition to attraction that I'm working on right now, that many people say, well, I'll just start my own business. Okay.
Yep.
But they have no idea how much work it actually takes.
Absolutely.
And they think it's going to be easy. And they're like, well, I'll just work for myself. And all of a sudden they realize they are woefully unprepared for all of the little things that go into building a business. It's hard. And I don't discourage anybody from starting a business, but I do encourage them to walk in with their eyes wide open and be prepared for the amount of actual work, even with assistance, that this is going to take.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I'm actually also working on helping people start a business specifically in the meetings and event industry. And one thing that is really making a difference is accountability. To your point, not only do I have a coach, I also have separately an accountability buddy. And
Mhm.
every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern, we have a call and we go for the 3 things that we committed to do that week.
Yep.
And there's no way you're going to show without having done that, for one. And for two, it's not enough to say, I've done it. You have to show it.
Ooh, I like it.
And one thing, and I really would like to have your opinion on that. It's about the discipline. It's about the determination, but the consistency. Obviously, you have learned that in the Navy, but I do believe that that's one of the most important criteria for success for anybody, but especially for those who have their own business, is the discipline. What do you tell people about that?
So it's all about your habits, and small habits make big changes. And my dad used to say, let's get operational. And that meant you get up at the same time, you have a cup of coffee, you go get showered and changed, you get ready for the day. He shaved every single day of his life, because that gets you into the mindset. And these past couple years, some people have kind of thrown those healthy habits out the window, where they're not getting dressed, they're not taking great care of themselves, they kind of let their office go to pieces, whatever that is. So it's about creating a schedule that sets you up for success. For me, every single day, and this is, I mean, I've got my productivity sheet for today and what this looks like, and it's mapped out for what I'm going to do for the day. And I get up every single day, Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, doesn't matter. I get up between 5:30 and 6 o'clock. And I get up and I do take the dogs out, have the coffee, do the things, read the emails every single day. If I'm on the road, I get up an hour earlier so I can make my sound check, whatever that is, because that sets me up for the day. And I know what makes my day successful, but I also know not everybody is willing to put in this kind of discipline.
Mhm.
And I structure my day in 15-minute increments from about 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's my normal day. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody has that motivation. So so then they go, well, Mary, what do I do? I go, okay, then start at 7. Like I'll give you till 7. And then they laugh and they're like, but I want to get up at 7. And then that's the big question is, well, what do you want?
Yeah,
Do you want your own business? Do you want this badly enough? Because if you do, you will be disciplined and dedicated and determined every single day. You think our Olympic athletes, when they go, you know what, I kind of don't feel like hitting the ice today. Maybe I'd just rather sleep in and eat donuts and
yeah,
maybe have a 6 pack of soda because that's going to be healthy. You can't do that when you're an Olympic athlete. You have to be disciplined and dedicated and determined every single day. And it matters what you do every single day. And some people say, well, that's a hard way to live. I think it's an easier way to live because once you get the habits in place, then the habits overtake you. We all get up and brushed our teeth this morning. You don't think about waking up and brushing your teeth, you just do it. And that's where those healthy habits need to kick in. And by healthy, I mean business habits.
absolutely. I remember years ago, I was speaking with a business coach, and what she told me was very clear. You have to know what you want, you have to know the price, and start paying the price.
That's
And
right.
then there's no excuse.
That's
You can
right.
always find excuse. No, there's no excuse. Just do it. That's my favorite quote actually from Yoda. Do or do not. There is no
There
try.
is no try.
It's
Yep.
everywhere. It's
Yep.
everywhere.
I love it. I love it. But that's where a lot of the people I work with, they're struggling with figuring out how to do that. So I'm like, okay, so
Mhm. Mhm.
Let's map out your day. Let's create the days so that you have those things in place to make you successful. Because, Eric, a lot of people just don't know. And this is where I think people like you and I can be helpful to other people as we say, hey, so let's look at what you're doing right now. Let's find some pockets where you might want to either delegate it, outsource it, get rid of it, or let's change how you're approaching this so that you are being set up for your own best success.
Absolutely. Mary, thank you. I can and I do always listen to you for hours when I have the chance to be in your presence. Thank you so much today for sharing all this information. My last question, and that's going to be episode 100 of the podcast with Jason Gaignard, because I got this question from him, and every time I'm mentioning it, sorry, when we meet in 1 year with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to be celebrating? And I want to link that as well to something I saw on your social media last week. As a new, freshly American coming from Belgium, which, yeah, I'm, as you know, very excited about. Can you explain to me the deal between Navy against Army, the football game, and then maybe answer the question about what you want to celebrate in 1 year?
So the Army Navy game this year, of course, is that we live for the Army Navy game. It doesn't matter if you've got a 0-10 record. If you beat Army as a Navy person, that's a successful season. It is our measure of everything. And this year, Navy was favored to lose. We've lost the last few years. Last year, our coach, we think, made a lot of mistakes. We think his job was probably in jeopardy. We had a hard schedule this year, and we played above our weight class. And Navy and Army did not. Army had an easier schedule, and I think that's what happened on the football field. Was Navy was used to playing harder opponents. Now, having said that, every time Navy gets confident, we start losing games. So we never take this for granted. But this, when we sing the national anthem, we end it with beat Army. They say beat Navy. It's just how we're raised. And I love this game, Eric, because it is the only sporting event in the world where members of the opposing teams will say they are number one enemy on this day, and any other day we would take a bullet for them. That's it. We would take a bullet for anybody else on that team because that is what we do. So that's the Army Navy heritage and tradition. I am a proud Navy graduate, and I would do anything for my West Point friends, and they know it. They know it. So there's that. And then what else was I supposed to answer? Oh, what we're going to do with the champagne? Yes.
So this year Navy won.
This year Navy won. We had a hard.
Next year?
Oh, we're winning next year. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes. We have to. You have to believe. You have to believe.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And besides that, what are we going to be celebrating in 1 year when we meet with a bottle of champagne?
Well, we are going to be toasting to your second year as an American citizen, and I could not be happier for you. We're going to be toasting to the publication of your new book, my friend. I will have a new book out as well. And we're going to be toasting to the return of robust and vibrant events that bring people together in a way that is meaningful, in ways that impact people's hearts as well as their minds and their business.
Wonderful. Mary, thank you so much. Commander Mary Kelly from the US Navy, thank you so much for taking the time with me today.
Eric, I adore you. Thank you so much, my friend.
Mary, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experience with us today. And thank you for what you've done in the US Navy. Absolutely fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get in touch with me, please reach out on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group on www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you found any value in listening to this podcast, please share it with your friends. Always appreciate it. Thank you.